Captain Elias Trent had always been known for his honesty. On the space station Helios Arc he was respected, but also feared a little. He said what he thought no matter who stood in front of him, soldier, traitor, or diplomat. He didn't believe in fancy words or false smiles. For him, truth was simple. So when he was told that a high-ranking alien diplomat from the Varathi Empire would arrive soon, he didn't bother to rehearse polite greetings like the others. The day of arrival, the whole docking bay was glowing under the white station lights. Officers stood in neat rows dressed in their best uniforms. Everyone whispered about the alien who was coming. Some said she was part of a royal line, others said she could control light itself. Elias didn't believe half of it. He crossed his arms and waited near the ramp, his expression calm but bored. When the shuttle door finally opened, the entire crowd fell silent. A tall, slender figure stepped out. Her skin shimmered like silver dust under starlight, and faint patterns of light moved slowly beneath it, forming shapes like constellations. Her hair looked weightless like threads of light. Her eyes, deep and calm, shifted colors like water-reflecting stars. This was Lyrathe, the Varathi envoy. Every human on the deck froze, unsure what to do. Should they bow? Should they salute? Elias didn't do either. He just looked at her for a moment, then spoke. "You look different from what I expected," he said, his voice steady, more like a piece of living starlight than a soldier. The words echoed in the silent bay. Some officers gasped. One alien guard reached for a weapon, thinking it was an insult. But Lyrathe didn't move. She studied him with quiet curiosity. Then softly she said, "You speak truth without fear. That is rare among your kind." Elias blinked. He wasn't sure if that was praise or a warning. But he gave a small nod and stepped aside to lead her through the station. As they walked, Lyrathe observed everything. The lights, the machines, the humans. She asked questions that surprised Elias. "Why do you make your corridors bright when your eyes prefer darkness? Why do your people smile even when they are sad?" Her voice was calm, her tone polite, but her eyes showed a deep curiosity about human life. Elias explained things in simple terms. He talked about laughter, hard work, and how humans liked showing emotions. Lyrathe listened carefully. When they reached the observation deck, she stared out at the galaxy, silent for a long time. Then she looked at Elias again. "Your people are loud," she said finally, "and unguarded. You say what you think even when it might wound." "That's how we are," Elias said with a shrug. "We don't hide behind words. Sometimes it causes trouble, but at least no one has to guess what we mean." Lyrathe's glowing patterns shifted, becoming softer. "Where I come from, such words can be dangerous," she said. "We hide truth behind grace. We wear beauty as armor." Elias tilted his head. "You don't need armor here," he said simply. "You just need honesty." She turned toward him again, her expression unreadable. "And yet your first words to me were about how I look." Elias froze. For the first time in years, he felt unsure. "I didn't mean it as an insult," he said quickly. "You're unique. Beautiful even. I just wasn't expecting someone who looks like a living star." Her glow changed again, deep orange now, warm and soft. The light around her brightened the whole deck in gentle hues. "Then you see beauty differently than we do," she said quietly. "Among my kind, beauty is not spoken, it is hidden. You are the first to call it aloud." Elias didn't know what to say. He was a soldier, not a poet. He simply nodded, feeling a strange pull in his chest. He didn't understand why, but her words lingered in his mind. Over the next few hours, Elias showed Lyrathe around the station. They visited the command deck, the gardens, and the crew quarters. Everywhere they went, people stared at her in awe, but she paid no attention to them. She stayed close to Elias, asking small questions about human behavior, emotions, and even humor. When a group of engineers tried to make a joke about her glowing patterns, Elias frowned and told them to show respect, but Lyrathe only smiled faintly and said, "They are curious, not cruel. Your kind shows emotion even in jest. It is refreshing." That evening they stood again by the large window overlooking the endless dark of space. Stars drifted like dust and the station lights flickered softly around them. Elias stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "Do all Varathi glow like that?" he asked finally. "No," she said. "It is a sign of what we feel. The patterns move with emotion. They are our words when silence is better." Her glow turned into waves of soft gold, fading into blue, then white again. Elias watched quietly, amazed. Then what does that color mean? He asked. She looked at him with calm eyes. It means curiosity, and something new I do not yet understand. Elias swallowed, suddenly aware of how close she was standing. I think humans confuse you, he said with a small grin. Yes, she said simply. But perhaps confusion is not always bad. A silence settled between them. It wasn't awkward. It felt alive, filled with something they both couldn't name. Elias, who was used to speaking his mind, found himself speechless for once. He looked out at the stars, pretending to study them, but his thoughts were far from the mission. Lyrithe broke the silence first. When I return to my world, I will tell them that humans are strange, that you speak like fire yet mean no harm, that your honesty can be both a weapon and a gift. Elias looked at her, smiling faintly. And what will you say about me? She paused. The lights in her skin dimmed to a soft silver. That one human taught me how truth can be beautiful. Elias didn't know what to answer. For the first time in his life, words escaped him. The man who had always been sure of his voice stood there, quiet, watching the alien beside him glow like the sunset of a world he'd never seen. Later that night, when he lay in his bunk, the echo of her voice returned to him. He realized that the simple words he spoke had changed something, not only for her, but for him too. The next days of the mission were going to test him in ways he never expected. And deep down he knew Lyrithe wasn't just another alien envoy. She was a bridge between worlds, and maybe between hearts that had never learned to understand each other before. The days passed quickly on Helios Ark as the diplomatic talks between humans and the Varethi Empire continued. Captain Elias Trent remained Lyrithe's guide, translator, and sometimes protector. The other humans and aliens looked at them curiously, whispering behind closed doors, but Elias didn't care. He had never been one to care much about what others thought. His focus was on the mission, and now unexpectedly on the alien beside him. Lyrithe observed humans closely. She watched how they argued, laughed, and expressed emotions openly. To her it was chaotic, almost messy, but also full of life. Unlike her people, where silence and careful gestures held meaning, humans spoke everything aloud. Their emotions were raw and their words often clashed. But somehow through all the shouting, humor, and occasional insults, they reached understanding. Elias noticed her fascination. One afternoon, after a long meeting filled with heated arguments between human and alien delegates, Elias and Lyrithe walked through the observation deck. The stars outside were calm and distant, sparkling like tiny diamonds scattered across black velvet. Lyrithe's glow was pale blue, showing her unease. They do not respect your people, she said quietly, her voice soft. The generals, your human counterparts, even some Varethi delegates, they doubt your methods. They see your words as reckless, Elias nodded. We've had worse reactions before, he said lightly, trying to make her smile. But humans can handle a little doubt. We don't mind being challenged. She looked at him closely, her glowing patterns flickering with uncertainty. I worry, she admitted, that the alliance may fail because of pride, misunderstanding, or fear. I have seen humans speak with fire. But fire can burn or warm. Which is it with your people? Elias smiled faintly. Depends on who listens, he said. You might be surprised to see how humans turn fire into light. Lyrithe studied him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she touched his arm lightly, a gesture of trust and curiosity. Teach me, she said softly. Teach me how humans speak truth even when it may hurt. Teach me how to show courage through words. Elias hesitated. He had never been a teacher, certainly not for an alien diplomat, but he saw the earnestness in her eyes. All right, he said finally. You start by speaking what you feel without hiding it. Don't think about pride, duty, or fear of judgment. Just say it. The next few days became a strange mix of learning and discovery. Elias showed her how humans used humor to ease tension, how they admitted mistakes openly, and how they complimented each other without fear. Lyrithe tried to repeat what he taught her. Her first attempts were awkward. She would pause mid-sentence, unsure of the tone, and her glow would flicker nervously. But Elias encouraged her. It's okay to be honest and imperfect, he said. Humans respect effort and sincerity, not perfection. Slowly, Lyrithe improved. She started teasing delegates in playful ways, showing emotion through her glowing patterns, and even laughed with humans instead of just observing them. The humans noticed, whispering to each other in awe. The Varethi generals were shocked to see their envoy, who usually remained silent and controlled, interacting with so much openness. One evening, after an especially long day of council meetings, Elias and Lyrathe found themselves standing outside the chamber watching the stars. She was quieter than usual, her glow dimmed to soft silver, showing fatigue and worry. "Elias," she said quietly, "tomorrow the final meeting will decide everything. If my generals reject the alliance, it could fail. I do not want to fail, not after all I have seen." Elias looked at her calmly. "Lyrathe, you've already changed more than you realize. You've seen humans not as reckless or crude, but as honest and courageous. The alliance isn't just about politics, it's about understanding each other. And you've done more than anyone expected." Her eyes glimmered with emotion, shifting between gold and pale blue. "I still fear," she whispered. "You're allowed to fear," Elias said gently. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." The next day, the final meeting began. Delegates from both species filled the chamber. The air was tense, thick with anticipation. One of the Varithi generals, his face cold and rigid, looked at the humans and sneered. "Your species is primitive. You lack discipline, control, and dignity. How can you be trusted with the fate of an empire?" Elias prepared to speak, but before he could, Lyrathe stepped forward. Her glowing patterns flared gold, filling the room with soft, bright light. Every eye turned to her. "You call them primitive," she said, her voice clear and firm. "Yet I have seen their courage, their fire, and their honesty. I have watched them speak truth without fear. I have learned that even blunt words can carry respect and meaning. I trust them, not because they are perfect, but because they are sincere." The chamber fell silent. Elias watched her amazed. He had taught her to speak freely, but the power and grace with which she defended humans left him breathless. Even the stiffest Varithi generals were caught off guard. Lyrathe continued, her glow shifting in rhythmic waves of gold and silver. "Humans build trust not from fear but from honesty. Their words may sometimes shock, but they inspire action. I have seen them risk themselves to help others, speak openly to protect life, and show strength through truth. This is why I believe in them, and why this alliance must succeed." Her words resonated through the chamber. The human delegates exchanged glances of relief and pride. The Varithi leaders, while still skeptical, could not deny the truth in her words. Slowly, the council began to nod, murmuring in agreement. The momentum shifted. What had begun as a tense negotiation turned into a breakthrough. After the meeting, Elias and Lyrathe stood alone in the observation deck. The chamber doors closed behind them, leaving only the hum of the station and the stars beyond. "You didn't have to defend us," Elias said quietly, still amazed by her courage. "I did," she replied softly, her glow dimming to silver, gentle and calm. "Because when you spoke your mind about my appearance, you showed me something I had never seen. Truth without fear. You made me see honesty as a gift. I only returned it." Elias felt a rare warmth in his chest. He had faced countless battles, crises, and negotiations, but this quiet, simple act of trust and understanding, was more powerful than anything else. "I thank you," he said almost shyly. Lyrathe tilted her head, a small, almost human smile appearing on her lips. "No thanks are needed. The gift was shared." They stood together, silent, watching the stars drift past. Outside, the galaxy stretched endless and full of light. Helios Arc, floating quietly among the stars, held the memory of this moment. A human and a Varithi, two beings from different worlds, understanding each other in a way no one else had. The alliance was signed that day, marking the beginning of a new chapter for both species. But Elias and Lyrathe knew that history would remember the treaty, while they would remember the quiet lessons. Courage and honesty, the beauty of truth, and the power of speaking one's mind without fear. In the weeks that followed, they continued to explore the station together. Lyrathe learned more about human culture, laughter, and resilience. Elias learned about Varithi traditions, the subtle language of light, and the strength hidden in quiet observation. Together they bridged a gap that many thought unchangeable. One night, standing at the observation deck again, Elias looked at her glowing patterns and said, "You've changed more than anyone could expect." She smiled faintly. "And you," she said, "have taught me that even in the simplest words there can be courage and beauty." "You showed me a human heart," Elias didn't answer. Words were unnecessary. They stood there side by side, looking at the stars, knowing that this bond, formed from honesty, courage, and understanding would last far beyond the boundaries of any empire or station. For the first time in his life, Captain Elias Trent found that sometimes speaking one's mind could create not only respect but connection, and sometimes it could leave even the bluntest soldier completely speechless.